2x2. But, we work in New York, which I think is an ideal place when you experience a storm such as this, the Dubocalypse. But we survived it. It's one for the record books, and obviously the government did a phenomenal job in all of that. And we've been friends for over 10 years. Yes. I think I was educating you on this space a decade ago, and you were at dinner, if I recall correctly, with long before Block 1 and EOS was founded. The first time Brendan Bloomer had been fully shadowing me, coming out of Kairos.
Brock gave me my very, very first Bitcoin, and he looked at me and he said, "You'll thank me later." And I was like, what am I doing?
Do you still have it?
So I did lose the keys, I know.
You and 99.9% of everyone else. I think I gave away at least $100 million in Bitcoin. There's only one person I recall or know of that still has it. If only I had given it away in a way that had come back.
So I went to Brock one day and I said, I have this crazy idea. I think that we can use rewards and loyalty credits, and I think that there's going to be a new currency out there. Lo and behold, he goes, "Oh,
I think I said it's hard to create.
Your ideas." Come over to the house, and I had been studying time banking because I thought if we can bank our time, then we can create currency that's valuable because human capital is valuable. And so I said, here, I'll give you all of our technology. Go ahead and do it. And I thought, oh, I don't know about that. Do you remember when I introduced you to Carla Ballard?
Yes, I ran for president of the United States of America, and my vice presidential running mate was Carla Ballard, who Brandy Vale introduced me to in that same contest, working on a similar idea.
Wow, I'm having a moment here. All right, so we're gonna.
Through the South Community, Michael, we've been friends for over 20 years. You've got a decade plus, you're double decade. So yeah, it's been amazing. Dubai is capital of crypto right now, no question about it. Lots of reasons as to why that is, but it's a pleasure to be here. It's been a phenomenal time, and it's good to be here with everyone.
Michael was talking about meme coins. Can we talk a little bit about meme coins?
We can definitely talk about meme coins. I was here in this hotel, but in a different room last night, right? I did the keynote at the Meme Coin Summit, closing that out. So these were the only two times I left the boat. But meme coins, we're in the fourth wave, and the fourth wave is, in my view, being led by meme coins. I always spoke positively about meme coins or community coins or cultural coins like Doge and others, though I had never dabbled. I have to believe in something and truly see its value to dedicate my time and attention to it. And it's because I've been building so many things with utility technology that it just wasn't something that I was slow to figuring this one out. And that's sometimes of having been too deep into something, the epiphany of how important meme coins were going to be to our future, just it never landed until I came to the realization that Bitcoin was a meme coin. That Bitcoin was the first meme coin. And once I came to that realization is when the whole sort of thing began making sense to me. And the Bitcoin meme narrative was money for hard money, Federal Reserve, inflation, and all of the messages that was the story that built the Bitcoin community. Now, obviously, it had technology and utility to accompany it, but that was the narrative. And so my conversation last night was about if you can't beat it, meme it. And if you want to lead them, meme them. And so I'm a big fan of everything that's going on there. We're working on things. I think last night the shirt I wore was Meme Lord. And so the meme community was very happy to see me so actively participating in it. And the things I would add to it, if Walt Disney and the Disney company were being started today, if Stan Lee was building Marvel today, the first thing that you'd probably see is Iron Man as a meme without a comic book, just the beginning of it. Because you would quickly bring a concept to market, see it resonates with the people in the same way music. There's different frequencies of sound, right? Is that vibration there? And is it resonating with you, right? Is it capturing the zeitgeist and the cultural, movement in that moment? And then from there, in a co-creation, community-led endeavor, then would come the comic books, the cartoons, the movies, and all those things would follow secondarily, or the technology that we all aggregate, or the parties and festivals that we all go to. As I'm saying now, the revolution won't be televised. It will be memed. Or as I think Elon Musk had quoted, he who controls the memes controls the universe for any Frank Herbert Dune fans. I believe that is where this is going. I believe that memes are here to stay, and it's the attention economy. Even if you're building something, unless it's B2B, if it requires a large number of users that have anything sort of consumer-centric, your meme strategy is going to be core to everything. So I'm in.
I have a question about politics. Do you think meme coins will be all with all the politicians? What do you think is going to happen with our government?
How many of you are buying trading memes? Okay, so majority. I think says a lot, right? When a majority are participating. Have you participated in any Politico-fi? How many people are buying political memes? Okay, right now, that's a small number of hands relative to those that are participating. So this is an area of what's going on in memes. It's really a protest vote. Or when you think about gambling markets, right? Prediction markets are you could go in on political outcome. Is Donald Trump going to win the election? In the 2016 sort of period. In 2024, in terms of the US elections, something new has emerged, which is an alternative to prediction markets, which is really a protest vote that you're seeing happening in advance. So the prediction markets were bets. It was affecting election outcomes. It was a wagering market, which was proven to be a more effective tool in polling. If you want to know the outcome of an election, I wouldn't listen to the pollsters anymore. I wouldn't listen to the newspapers anymore. The prediction markets were more accurate. The betting markets were more accurate in polling. Memes have a component of that. It's also attracting the masses largely in a negative protest vote right now. So take a look at Joe Biden. About a $400 million market cap right now. Look at Donald Trump. About a $39 million market right now. But then you've got Hunter Biden, Elizabeth, something based on Warren. You've got Gary Gensler. So this is a way where the people, in advance of election day, are making their opinion of our elected officials, candidates, as the case may be, or their children, saying, we don't like you. We don't like how you're serving the people. And I think that this, as a way of exercising one's view, is not. You will also see the sort of. I find the activity that I'm going to get very involved in this, but not just as a tool for protest, but as something that is designed specifically to impact election outcomes in a very substantial way. For the U.S., the sleeping giant in America is the youth. The youth already have the numbers in America today. Outcome of the next election. They have all the power right now, they just don't realize it. And they're abstaining and not participating because they don't like what they see. There's also questions, in America, they're not happy with it right now, and so they protest by not participating. But the future is going to happen to you, or it's going to happen with you. So you either are an active participant in choosing your future, or someone else is going to choose it for you. So you need to be a participant. Your participation is required if you want, an amazing future. If you want that quality of life. And so I think there's some pretty interesting in this election. I'm not going to get into the specifics of what hopefully I'm unveiling in short order. But it will be disruptive. And I think the one part I would add, speaking of, I mentioned Marvel, if you think about X-Men, Superman, all your superhero characters, Black Adam, all of these characters, I think it's very possible that when we look at the team that sort of, impacted the world arguably, wanted to change thing that could happen to affect our collective outcome as a planet, as a civilization. It's the election of the next president of the United States of America. A singular event knows to create a bigger impact than that. And imagine if the Shiba Inu army, and the Doge army, and the Pudgy Penguin army, and the Bitcoin community, and all of these networks reach you where they are, activated, and just got everyone to get out. Barack Obama got the youth to show up a little. We could light it all the way up.
Comment on that, or let me ask some more questions? No, I think that what Brock said is very true. When he was talking about, Elon's quote, it reminded me of a quote a long time ago, which was, I guess, the last century, when you didn't want to fight, the leading newspaper reporter in town, and the quote was something along the lines of, "You don't wage war with someone who buys their ink by the barrel." It was the first quote or something.
I mean, that's where Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, now X, is such an important move. And it's why Jeff Bezos, bought the Washington Post. It's why David Geffen bought the LA Times. And, it's a strategy that many have learned from. The media is an important, it's the fourth branch of the U.S. government, the unofficial branch, which is.
And this is true, and Elon is, of course, paid for it now with, being taken out of bids for, electric cars and space areas where he's way ahead, and Space Link, and for political reasons. But it is, as somebody who, ran for president as an experimental last time, what do you see as the dynamics here? I mean, obviously, you and I are both RFK supporters. We'll be doing a fundraiser in Las Vegas around the EDC in a couple of weeks. Is this the beginning of some freedom and the ability to break away from the three-party system?
Yes, and I know this is getting very United States, but what they say is when America gets cold, the whole world sneezes, and it's still true. And so it does matter, despite the incredible growth and the success of what's happened here in the UAE and Dubai specifically. So it is relevant to all of us. So I hope this is entertaining, informative, and helpful. The last time a third-party candidate was to win the election in the United States, because most people say it's impossible. It can't be done. Remember, change your perspective, change your reality. Impossible is spelled I-M. Possible. So the last time a third-party candidate were to win, an independent candidate, was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican president. And so when an independent wins, they become the new party. By the way, even within factions internally, Donald Trump overthrew, the incumbent power structure within the Republican Party. It goes by the same name, But, there was an internal, battle within the existing apparatus. Bill Clinton was the last time that happened within the Democrats. They were called the New Democrats, right? Kennedy came in and ran as a Democrat, saying we want to go back to the Kennedy Democrats, which was a moderate Democrat, right? So these things have been happening within the existing structure, and every now and then, very rarely, do you end up with an entirely new, call it, vehicle. I think it's very important. America's very divided and polarized right now to a place that is scary. Like, low probability, but probable. I mean, it's not zero, it's greater than 1% of civil war. And how do you avoid that? The middle way. Kennedy, I think, is the perfect representation of it. I predicted immediately following my run for president in 2020 that it would be a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Said it to everyone the last 3 years, and it was only the last 3 months where people finally said, wow, how did you know? Well, I usually show up and I'm often first at things. I must have some sense of what's coming. And so, is it possible? Absolutely. Kennedy has got double-digit polls right now, higher than Ross Perot, the highest of any independent candidate to date. And here's the thing that I also have been saying, the Wall Street Journal and everybody's written about. To win the presidential election in the United States of America, you need 270 electoral college votes. Meaning, in a two-party race, if there's a tie, it's 269 and 269. If Kennedy wins even a few states, the likelihood of any candidate winning the election goes to near zero. Meaning, in a three-way race, no one wins. It's happened twice in American history. The last time was over 200 years ago. And then what happens is the Speaker of the House becomes interim president of the United States. And then the House of Representatives, with each state getting one vote, chooses the president like they pick the Pope. Someone has to get 26 votes and they vote over and over again until consensus is reached. And so, is it possible? Yes. Has it been done before? Yes. So, the idea that this is impossible is just looks really, really difficult, and it's so many generations away from what we've experienced that there's just no familiarity with it. But if ever there was a moment for, call it, disruptive, positive change, it feels like an ideal moment for it. I mean, I come from media, I grew up starring in movies, and I can't speak for the world or other cultures, but I can speak for Americans. We don't like syndicated content. We don't like reruns. We're tired. Now we want some new material, and at least we've got it in the form of a third-party candidate running. That represents the middle way that hopefully can bring unity. Kennedy is basically a moderate Republican that is truly the middle of the road, and based upon the polls that I have been doing all of last year and beginning of this year, he didn't take from one side more than the other. He truly is representative. Remember, the U.S. political system, it mostly overlaps. And we have been misled to believe that we're really different and we should be at odds because of the vocal minority on both ends. And when the silent majority realizes that we are all in this together, and we're going to win together or lose together, hopefully we figure this out and do the right thing.
An interesting point is, I've said for many years that, obviously northern flyover states, which are very red, most people I know on the east coast of the U.S. and the west coast of the U.S., which is the majority of the population, their general philosophy is that they're socially liberal and fiscally conservative, but you never get to vote for that candidate because of the purity test of both parties. But RFK Jr. really is that candidate. He is very socially liberal, and he's very fiscally conservative, and so that's a really nice fit. I'm going to pivot from that, though, to Biden.
Also anti-war.
And very much anti-war. And
Which, I mean, with everything going on this last week, we really need, leaders around the world that are opposed to the war machine. The consequences of war are a bit of a problem, as anyone paying attention has noticed. We were dangerously close to,
What do you think about Costa Rica and UAE recently and signing off on an agreement? Any updates on that?
I mean, but what we need right now is those that are in positions of leadership around the world that are influential. Yes, it's very helpful when we get governments, being leaders, even small governments. President Bukele, right, a head of state who made himself a world leader. The future favors the bold. Fortune favors the bold. Look at where we all are right now. Incredible leadership here has led to a 21st century nation state that is attracting the intellectual, financial, and the creative capital from all around the world.
People vote with their feet, and 50,000 was here this week.
Michael, you were talking about, we've been talking a lot about Africa today during this summit, and we have a few great people in the audience right now doing some wonderful projects, including Telecom. And Michael, you and I were discussing the importance of Teleco, and possibly even wallets being embedded into the system to make some.
We already have a move from, most of Africa is mobile money, so they are already using a form of digital currency, but it's cell phone minutes. And it's not that much of a disruption for the telcos to decide, you know what, we see the people in Nigeria want Bitcoin, they want Tether, and to simply add as an option to cell phone minutes. And Brock, I know you've been very active all over the world, including in LATAM, with similar initiatives to be able to go and see, what is the quickest way to get Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in places that, are not there for meme coin casinos. They're there because their livelihood depends on having something that's stable or appreciated.
Yeah, clearly the telcos are very well positioned to provide more than telephony or connectivity. It's the desktop, and the desktop with hardware built in, which allows you to do a lot of things. And so the most advanced payment market in the world 10 years ago was Kenya. Kenya had a product called M-Pesa. And when you don't have an incumbent infrastructure, right, which is an incumbency of protecting the status quo, creating friction to oppose innovation for the obvious reason, to protect what you have, build a moat. You don't have that, which gives you the freedom to leapfrog, to whatever the latest and greatest technology that's available. They skipped wired tech and went straight to wireless. They skipped, PayPal and all of these things and went straight to an alternative standard, the telco standard, prepaid cell phone minutes. And so a lot of the innovation is going to come from the places where you either have leadership, like here, or with the Bukele in a handful of places, where due to great leadership, things happen quickly, or it's going to come from the places that need it most, out of necessity, right? Necessity often brings forth the change. And so telcos are clearly there. I hold a role in the United Nations through a permanent mission in my 21 countries of coverage are Spain, Portugal, the Dominican Republic, and every country in Central and South America. So I spent a lot of time there working on telecom with government. And if you looked at what happened, Dubai was really the first that said we're going to move toward blockchain. Kennedy last week said, if I'm president, we'll move to blockchain. But Ukraine was also a very interesting one. Out of necessity, the government went full digital. And so I can't say which government I'm talking to about doing this, but they're also in Latin America. By way of the telco, the government go through its own evolution of digitization. And there's so many reasons for it, whether it be land titling, identity, CBDC. And by the way, we often vilify all these things in case of the CBDCs, but I want to point out one thing about technology. Technology is amoral. It is neither good or bad. It is a tool. How we use it, our intentions, and its design determines the impact it has. Which is why you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to actually do the work to understand the implementation. Because electricity can be used to turn on lights or electrocute someone, right? There are, how we use these things matter. So don't just dismiss something because it's been presented to you in a negative light. There's two sides to everything.
I'm sorry to interrupt because we are very short on time. We do have questions from the audience, so if you'd like.
That was my next question.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm going to start with you, sir. Go ahead.
Let everyone talk about. So one of the things that you came to and you talked a lot about was interuse within telecommunications and stuff like that. We have a lot of different apps. We have like Libre, we have User that helps teach people about Bitcoin. What are some of the things that you see on the horizon that will help onboard new users, but also educate people a little bit more about what they already have? And things like Wallet of Satoshi, we have Lightning Network that makes peer-to-peer a lot faster and a lot easier in infrastructure layer and in up-and-coming countries like Latin.
Well, someone's probably getting the best KOL deal out of me ever. I've never done a KOL deal. Actually, I've been asked much times this week. I'm like, no, I've helped out a handful of companies that I thought were interesting or invested in. But last night I was given a free phone. And this is going to be the best killing it's probably ever got in terms of me talking about them. But it was the Earn phone. And basically incentivized use. I thought it was pretty cool. They were handing out phones at the Art Stout party last night. And there are others that have done this. I remember Keep back in the day. I mean, this is not a new model. People have been creating these incentives. But with tokenization, that seems to be a pretty powerful tool for driving adoption. People are saying, use our phone and basically get paid. For those that don't know my background, I was the main market maker running all the markets for the metaverse when we used to call them massively multiplayer games. World of Warcraft, Second Life, all this stuff. The video game industry was a subscription, a packaged software business. You bought games in a box. Then it became a subscription business. You paid monthly. And then I basically said microtransactions, digital currency has value, pioneered that whole world, ran it basically globally for a long time before Bitcoin, which then caused game companies to say, instead of charging subscription fees, we can have a microtransaction model, which is, microtransactions, and then that became kind of play to earn, and the idea that this is going to continue to happen and become more pervasive societally is clearly the trend that we're on. So I think that's one of them. Obviously, the telcos becoming, realizing that they want access to the economic participation, what they call on deck. They can put things into the phone from the beginning, which is obviously an opportunity for them. Then you've got people like me acquiring telcos and getting licenses and things around the world, which obviously will make things happen even faster if enough of that happens. Also, friends of mine that have basically done all the prepaid card stuff in developing nations where you go with cash, take things out. I'd say what was delaying everyone is telcos are regulated. And so even though the opportunity has been ever present, people have been reluctant to do it. One major thing changed. I was on Fox, I'll be on Fox News again tonight, I'm talking regularly. The world changed when the Bitcoin ETF was approved. Because everybody looks to America for leadership. And as long as America had not made a decision in terms of how it was going to deal with this industry, it caused everybody to say, well, let's wait a little while longer. Let's wait a little while longer. When the SEC approved those ETFs, they used to always say, and they still even ask, wow, isn't all this the Wild West? I go, well, the Wild West became California, don't ignore it. And I'd say that the Wild West, at least for Bitcoin, is no longer the Wild West. This is institutional. It is greenlit by the SEC and the US government, and there is no chance it's going away, not that it was anyway. But that is the message I would be telling governments all over the world now. This is the time to move. Most people don't want to be first, because first is dangerous. You take the arrows in the back as a pioneer, and generally the second mouse gets the cheese. But you do want to be a fast follower. You want to be watching what others do, and when something is working, you don't want to be last to the party. And I would say the race has begun. I'd say that 2024 this is the transition year where if I'm a telco, I want to be the first telco in my nation to do this. If I'm a government around the world, I want to be going because the first to market in the country usually gets a lot more economic value and participation in market share than last place. Last place usually does.
We So we're seeing, as you were talking about, like the Earn phone, we've seen with like Solana Mobile, the deep in infrastructure growing out, the incentivization, data, like you were saying, time, being sweat economy.
I'm not sure about everybody creating their own hardware. The hardware business is hard. And sure, you can do a white label, create your own phone as a gift for your community, make it branded so it's like hip. Yeah, that I think works, but I think it's more of a gimmick. You know, at the end of the day, the people that are going to build the next generation phones that's all they do. So I'm skeptical that that's the answer, but I think it's a great feature and something that, you know, for your community is gift out phones to your, you know, your hardest core users, your super users, etc.
So the easy path is really, I mean, as much as I'd love to see T-Mobile go and say they're partnering with Coinbase, that's not going to happen right away, right? It took like a lot of pioneers to get 11 ETFs. I mean, this week I met a company based in Dubai, and unsurprisingly, this is where it's probably going to start, who, and I got to do my due diligence on it, but they claim that they have, you know, licensing here and a deal with a telco that will basically allow you to go in and hook up to your bank account, fully regulated, full KYC, and then basically go and buy Bitcoin with it, send it to other countries that they're on their network. And that's the holy grail, right? If you're able to go in, and whether it's from the telco or from a provider that partnered with the telco and then tries to partner with another telco, that's all you need to get mass adoption is to have an easy way of taking your own phone or buying a phone, signing with a carrier, having the carrier do a partnership, whether it comes from within the carrier or from within the innovator, which in this case, in Dubai it is. And you just pick up the phone, and it's as easy as saying, oh, I'm connecting to my bank account. I know how to do that. I've done that with Apple Phone, right? And then you just simply say, I'm going to take $100, I'm going to put it in. Oh, I can buy $100 of Bitcoin. Or I can buy $100 of Dog with Hat, whatever. Or I can buy $100 of Tether, and then send that as rupees to India. That changes the game.
Next question.
Brock, do you think people should have access to on-chain privacy?
I mean, yes. I mean, I'm life, liberty, pursuit, happiness sort of person in the liberty category that falls into it. And so, you know, the question is where, right? I also believe I'm not an extremist. I'm not a maximalist. I'm a curious person that, you know, understands that there's always some middle ground, and there's a point to being overly principled, right? We have to find consensus that can work for everyone. You know, we talked about, you know, finance. You know, finance probably should have done more to keep certain actors and things off the platform. You know, there are, you know, I support the mission of how I support life, you know, in all ways, always. And so my view is, how do we advance civilization in a way that works for everyone as best we can? And how do we minimize chaos and human suffering so that we can go through the creative, destructive, evolutionary events that keep circling, you know, in the most positive way possible? And so there's a balance of making sure that people have sufficient privacy, that they have the freedom that they need, while understanding that we share this world together, whether we're in the confines of a nation state or whatever it is, and we have to find that through whatever form of governance, you know, we're involved in. And so it's not always the extreme of that, which can create all sorts of other problems. And that's why it's important that we're all part of the conversation. But yes, I believe in privacy, but it doesn't mean to the point that we are putting ourselves all at extreme risk. And the question is, what are the solutions to that? How do we find solutions to ensure, you know, we also want security, right? We want privacy with security. We want privacy and safety, you know, and so it's in finding the balance. And when you look at the world from a singular perspective, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail versus a Swiss Army knife, right? You're going to sometimes take the overly extreme position, which is why it's important to show up and be part of the conversation. Because individually we may not have the answers, but collectively we always do.
All right, we have one more question here.
Hi, Bob. I wanted to know your thoughts about capital efficiency in DeFi protocols. Do you think, you know, the existing protocols provide enough capital efficiency for a person to switch over from Web 2, traditional stocks, bonds, and those kind of markets to Web 3?
Well, I mean, I think we're still experimenting. I'd say that the markets for Web 2 are very established, but I'll point out some flaws in the efficiency there. Microsoft went public, I think, in 1996 for $580 million or something like that, 680 as a market cap, sub 1 billion. Google, all of these sort of companies, meaning the terminal value of, the value that was created, the private investors captured less than 1% of the value of those companies, where they took, call it 99% of the risk, right? That was inefficient. When companies have gone public in recent times, they're usually going public at around 100% of the terminal value, which means the private investors are capturing all of the value, generally speaking, and the public